All right, now we're ready to get started. Linnea and I are delighted to be here as your co-chairs to officially run this meeting. So thanks for bearing with us as we get ready to dive into some exercises today.
Because nothing says more fun than.
Oh, yeah, the job is from a nonprofit that have like used these dots before, so we will reuse them till everyone is done. But we wanted to start with a quick icebreaker. So I'll turn it over to Linnea to do that.
Okay, great. Well, we wanted to get everyone's names again and just to continue to introduce one another to each other. So we have a quick icebreaker question. That will go around, and we are looking for a 60 to 90-second response, because otherwise we'll do the icebreaker question the entire meeting and we won't get to the things we need. So 60 to 90 seconds. And
I'm gonna time it just to make sure we stay. We only have an hour and we have a lot to do, so
and this is
I'm
a good
gonna
question.
time it. Yeah.
So the question is, what is your earliest memory connecting you to arts and culture? So what is your earliest memory connecting you to arts and culture? And I will jump in first, just to maybe we'll work our way around that way. So in case you hadn't read the question before and right now you're going like, gives you a few more minutes to think. I'll say, hi, I'm Linnea Grimm. I am the president and CEO at Strawberry Bank Museum here in Portsmouth. Quick plug for our baby animals event that's going on. And my earliest memory connecting me to arts and culture, I'm going to say, was when I saw the Nutcracker with my mom when I was probably about 3 or 4. It turned into a wonderful annual event for just her and me to go and see ballet together.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Emma Stratton, Executive Director of Portsmouth Historical Society and one of your co-chairs. One of my earliest memories actually has to do with the museum, a historic house. I went to Sagamore Hill on Long Island, which is Teddy Roosevelt's home. And I remember specifically being entranced with all of the taxidermy he had in his study and walking in that room as a small kid and being like, what is this place? And what are these things here that are staring at me? And from that moment on, being kind of really intrigued in the idea of preserving homes and the stories that go with them. But walking into that study and seeing all those giant animals that he had taxidermied is a memory that sticks with me. Solidly.
My earliest memory is probably I was obsessed with drawing when I was little, like all animals. That was my thing. I thought I was gonna grow up and like be an artist. Still working on it. And I just had a really great elementary school art teacher who was so connected in like explaining everything and all the techniques. And I like still remember her to this day. So that definitely is what like inspired me to stay connected to art.
And say your name one more time.
Teresa. I don't know if I said that.
My name's Jess. My earliest memory of arts and culture was, I think I was under 12. And the Museum of Science had an exhibit of Ramses the Great. And it was a whole, like, you know, it went with my parents and my brother and my grandparents. It was a whole big day. And I, you know, that began a lifelong obsession with Egyptian culture. So super cool.
Genevieve Achel. I'm a theater artist and also a founder of New Hampshire Theater Project. Thank you to everybody who came to see my show, which is closed. That's why I'm so tired. I guess my earliest memory was when I was about 5 or 6 and my aunt Molly, who introduced me to theater, period, took me to see Iolanthe, Gilbert and Sullivan. She did DC. I don't think the arena was around then. I don't know where it was, but I fell in love, never looked back.
Hey, I'm Ken Goldman. I'm local photographer and the assistant chair, coach, I don't know, someplace in there. Vice chair, okay. Yeah, I grew up in the New York metropolitan area and I kept thinking about all these museums, but I think really the earliest was listening to Peter and the Wolf on 78 RPM records, and it was narrated, and whoever was narrating was saying, you know, this is Peter, this is the woodsman, and da 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 da.
Eli Kaner. I'm a cellist and here representing PMAC, Portsmouth Music and Arts Center. My earliest memory, I come from a musical family, and I think on my dad's side, he calls contra dances, and my earliest memory is actually being on a giant, I remember the blanket all the kids would sit on at the back of the stage and looking out and seeing all the dancers spinning around and everybody having fun at the front of the stage.
Karen Rosania, I'm an artist and an art studio owner here in Portsmouth. And art has always been, I guess, in my DNA. But I guess one of my most memorable moments was partaking in a poster contest for the state of Connecticut. And it was for people with disabilities. And I brought out the word abilities and highlighted all the things they could do. And something I still feel very passionate about today, and teaching people with different, I call it different abilities. And it made my studio accessible and all that. So yeah, it stuck with me.
Well, I'm Jeffrey Cooper. I'm your secretary. And my mom was a painter, and I used to watch her paint boats in Gloucester. When I was 5 or 6, I used to make Play-Doh bells and sell them to the neighbors. My mom took me to the symphony, and I thought the violins were much too shrill. And then she took me to Don Giovanni, and I was terrified.
Robin Albert, just representing the community at large. And yes, yes to Peter Wolf. I do totally remember that very young. And my mother was a dancer, but my grandmother, who died when I was 5, I knew that she was an artist because I knew that she painted, and she would sit with me while I painted beach shells.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jason Goodrich, and my memory hits really close to home and geographically as well. It was Prescott Park. I was 8 or 9 years old, and I remember going down with my family and the late afternoon, setting up our blanket. And I didn't realize at the time, but like watching community build around me as more families brought their blankets down and got ready for the play or the concert that night. And me, my brother, and my sister running around with 100 other kids that we knew just for that evening, and getting in the fountain and taking the pennies.
You remember the show?
I don't know. We took money at every show, so but that's my memory.
Kate Cook, I am your city council rep, and I remember vividly when I was a little girl, my parents put me in all kinds of arts classes, dance, 3 different kinds of dance, and piano and visual arts, mostly because there wasn't good aftercare and they needed to send me somewhere after school. But when I was 4, I love the Nutcracker story, because when I was 4, I remember getting to audition to dance with the Fort Worth Ballet in the Nutcracker as a mouse, and getting cast to be one of the mice and running around on stage. And it was like one of those typical productions where like you've got all the little kids and they're like featuring all the little kids. None of you can dance, but it was fun.
Sean.
Catherine?
Oh, you're muted.
See the finger going.
There we go.
Oh,
There we go.
You're home
That's
spot.
there? Yes. You hear me? Okay. I'm Catherine Sorella. I'm a community at large member. And my earliest memory is actually sitting on my dad's lap, and he would take and freehand copy draw the cartoons from the newspaper. We always thought that was the coolest thing, that he would just draw the cartoons. And then, but my grandmother was also an artist, and they kept me in all the activities. I was a ballet dancer, and we big family fan of musicals, all the musicals, Rodgers and Hammerstein and the gamut. But that was mine, was just having my dad draw us little pictures Sunday morning.
Okay. I'm gonna close this out really strong. So Sean Clancy, Economic and Community Development. I'm your staff liaison, and my first exposure was being required to be in the cast of A Christmas Carol. And I believe I played Fezziwig.
Great.
And that's probably the last time I've been in a cast. But I do have an amazing appreciation for people who cover the performing arts. more so music, although I've been going to the players rink. When you're in that little box, it's
Yeah.
pretty amazing what people can do. So very cool. That's my story.
All right.
And exactly 10 minutes, huh?
All right, so we're going to move into our activity, which takes off from where we last were when we were meeting, which was talking about how do we start doing some priorities? And I want to say it was Robin, but don't trust my memory, right? I think you
Dots.
suggested the dots, right?
So
that's how we're here. We love dots. So when we got together to brainstorm for this meeting, we said, well, let's go ahead and take what is on pages
6 and 7.
6 and 7.
Oh.
I started writing on my
I need a copy of that too.
And if you need a copy,
Sean has
and with thanks to Emma, she has written out the bullet points on big sticky pieces of paper. So we're gonna go ahead and put these big sticky pieces of paper up. While we're doing that, you can be thinking about the prompt, which is really, in your opinion, there are going to be 3 parts to this. So listen to all 3 parts, which we're going to have to do a timeline. So in your opinion, what is the year 1, your top 3 year 1 priorities of these of these bullet, sorry, looking at bullet points. So top 3 year 1, and we are going to make those green dots. So green dots for the top year 1. And we're gonna do all our green dots first, then we're gonna come and sit back down and we'll consider the next time frame, which is going to be years 2 and 3. And then we'll do years 4 and beyond, and they'll each have a different color. I thought if we tried to do all the colors at the same time, I don't know, so, Catherine, do you mind, putting yours in the chat and we'll add dots here on the room? Does that work for you? Or you could email them, I suppose, to Sean, whatever is easier.
I'm probably gonna have to email them later since I'm on my phone right now.
All right,
Could you speak
I'll
if you,
try and do it. Yeah, I can, let me see if I can, trying to get into them. My phone lets me do so much at once.
right, yeah, I understand. Okay, so we're gonna hand out the dots, and so for right now, just think about year 1. What are your top priorities for this group, given these bullet points for the first year?
Question.
Yeah,
We have a certain number of dots. Can we put all 3 on one if we think it's
Yeah.
really important, or put 2 on one and
Great
1 on
question.
another?
yes, you can allocate them however many,
Okay.
as much you want, with honors, it's an honors code system here, so 3 dots. I know you.
I didn't bring my own dots, like I can't use.
so we're getting 3 dots
3
each,
dots, 3
even though
green
we've got 7.
Green,
Oh.
green,
green.
stick with green right
Year
now.
1
Now
is
we can
green.
tell it's year 1.
Year 1 is green.
Year 1 is green.
Fine.
Easy being green.
Okay, and stand up and. When you're ready.
Fix that, I can fix the whole, that's fine.
I know, preservation.
Thank you, by the way. Yes.
I do.
So we're in school.
No.
There. You like your Harvard? That's fine. I'm a operation.
My first year here was, I think that was in the third year.
First I might be wrong.
First year was Carousel. We used to do 2 shows.
I just remember being in the park as a young.
I think it was.
The year I came to Portsmouth, they did Finland, we could do.
I don't remember when I think I did 84 to 86. All right, so for years, next, like the time frame is 2 to 3 years. Let's do yellow. We'll do yellow for 2 to 3 years, so same activity.
Hey, Catherine, if you can hear, we're doing it per bullet. It's not.
Oh, okay. Per puller, okay.
Okay, and then our third time frame is years 4 and beyond, still a priority, but something that we think will be a little more down the road. And let's do blue, just because red means like no. So. They're still priorities.
thought that this was a very simple, easy.
Oh, yeah.
It's for a million years, and they pretty much always work just in terms of getting the temperature.
Yeah.
down. And
Well, I'm trained
sometimes
by
there's
Jim
times-
Newkins.
And before.
Well, you did it before that, but for me, I learned doing it.
We celebrate. Anyway.
The first night was just me and Abby, because the second night we went to the temple. It stretched out really long, the dinner.
Do you want
It
the
took
stickers back?
forever to get the dinner out.
Oh, yes, I do.
So by the time she got to do the second half of her service, it was pretty.
Yes,
Oh,
yes, I
yeah.
do.
Lots will be-
Absolutely, we will use them again.
Someday, not this pet. That's 14 hours.
Forgot about myself. I know, that's
Squeezed us in, because we actually came home a week earlier, so she didn't think we were gonna be. Squish us in.
Well, historically, we were going to Joanne Singh. She's in Amsterdam on a ski club.
Absolutely.
She
I
would
do.
every year host a very nice
Not sure how.
event.
Right, I know that's.
I'm gonna write down what she put,
Right.
but I think.
Oh,
I was looking at the camera, like, when cameras, but what also. Or maybe we can.
I've never done that and I wouldn't want to buy it.
You don't want to be in trouble.
I don't
with
want
it.
to buy it, so no.
what are the names?
These are your pictures.
A lot of them are, yeah.
Catherine, can you see the different bullets or no? It was 1974.
Yeah, I'm working on them. I'm working on them. I have to type them all in.
Yeah. One's cars parked.
I know. I
They
was so
started?
glad. You did a great
I
job.
knew I was.
Yeah, well,
I was finally gonna find it. Whatever.
So obviously there
Yeah.
was several years before they had the theater.
Just
Square
wait.
it off.
Oh,
Yeah, smoking candy cigarette.
I just got tired of having pictures of cars and it's like.
Oh, really?
I figured out how to get a.
Okay,
fairly clean
so then when
picture.
I saw it, it
Oh, that's
wasn't.
great.
the
That was a
theater.
good
Important
picture.
piece of public art.
More-
That was your
brother, right?
Well, he did the drawing, yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I love
Not gonna
this
have been as
one.
young as 5 when they
This
first
one
started.
too. The light.
Catherine sending you her.
She is, but she's, yes, no,
Okay.
she's working.
Imagine having been
All right.
5 years old in nineteen,
Yeah, yeah, I
You're-
know.
Just let us know when you're ready.
I love, I'd go look at that.
graduated college in 73.
That's one of my favorites.
Looked at that, I'm feeling old these days.
No, it's doing the
Wow.
opposite.
That was this winter though, wasn't it? We
I
didn't have any snow this winter.
don't remember when that was a few years ago, but you know, the sky- the sky was just. right.
That's what drove me.
A lot of photography is just right place, right time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my students.
No one to take, they took the shutter.
But you gotta have that eye.
You know, whenever they published this, Dawn.
So that's largely what made me, one of the
Sharp,
things
because
made me
you
want
get a
to.
picture of the public art, he goes, you have.
I know, yes.
Yeah, you. I mean, it is only. a small
Well, I
thing.
was, lived in Dover.
That's-
for
that's
some
one
years. I was
that's
UNH,
These are beautiful.
and then I just drove into Portsmouth and I saw this going on. I said,
Yeah, no.
"Oh."
I can't
Yeah.
draw.
Yeah.
I can't send it, can't dance.
Because I was
Those
from
photos.
Manchester, and my dad's store was.
Most people don't know that that's even there.
Powerful female drawers.
It's like Simpsons or or
love it.
smaller dairy trading post.
You know, in this very
Yeah.
small area, you have like 4 pieces
got
of
these
public
outside,
art.
yeah.
Yeah,
People don't even know.
Big.
I know, I know.
No.
I sometimes take visitors over there.
Yeah.
and say, let's just go look at the parking garage. And they're like, what?
There's a lot to see there, yeah.
But you know what I died?
I can't see the
The
yellow,
Reflections of Portsmouth exhibit is gonna be redone because all the prints are starting to fall
They-
apart.
but red dot to
You
the
know,
top of the yellow,
Actually,
You know, Michael.
this is me.
a circle around it.
Mike's.
It's a, so I got a photo of one of my photos.
She doesn't like red, you could just put a
Oh, is that
red.
which
on
one's
it.
yours?
So,
Oh, that's a photo of your photo. Oh, I like that. That's
I
great.
guess you can.
So these are falling apart and so they're gonna put like the cellophane on the
Like colored in a
windows.
little
They're
bit, the
gonna
yellow ones with a pen, would it be easier to see?
So there'd be
them?
offices behind there. So the people in the offices be able to look out, and you won't be able to look in on
I
them.
came from there.
You'll see the
You
art.
take that
I
black
just think
one.
it's a wonderful exhibit.
What?
Thank you, Robin.
I think it's so many
Yeah.
different types of
Yep.
paintings and photos and.
You were in this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I saw you. I saw you. That was quite the event. I know.
Johnny's
And then
awesome.
this
Yeah.
metal
Great
road,
time.
which is right.
I shared a
there.
room with Johnny. We just started teaching there, so,
Okay, this.
Oh,
this-
Roxbury Park.
well,
Oh, okay,
you know, by the playground there?
Yeah.
Right there.
he's a cool guy.
And some people have known him, it's wonderful.
Or he has
video
visual
exists.
Okay.
What he's painted his walls with all this great stuff.
That's why I take these pictures. I share a lot online. Share my view of Portsmouth.
Start knowing the neighbors.
Yeah.
On the second one, bottom, thank you.
Robin, that is so helpful.
I know, isn't it?
Their favorite part of Portsmouth, that's where you are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a lot of it.
Don't worry, you didn't miss.
And
the
actually,
spot.
there's one picture I have to find, because Papa Wheelies used to have something posted on the side there. Yeah, a couple of years ago, so I have to really go back and look through my photos. Because I know I took a picture of it at least once or twice. So I'm gonna recover that one.
We've got you documented, Catherine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Black to the yellow was that yours?
Oh, Sharon's
We
putting
put a
hers
black
up.
circle so you could see the yellow,
Oh,
because they were hard to
Oh.
see.
Okay.
They can be.
Okay. Looks like communications is important. That was one thing
Yeah.
I noticed as I went through this, is it was a continuing theme through several of these. And really, that's really important.
I was like, I kept thinking, the reason this must have come up so much, or so, like those themes that kept coming up, is like, because there was probably that much recognition that we weren't doing it that well yet.
Communication.
Well, that's what people complain about all the
Right.
time.
Well, thank you, everyone. So Emma and I were just saying, we're glad, that there is some themes that appear to be emerging. So, as everyone is looking at the sheet, I'm trying to think. Share something?
Yes. I
Yeah,
think,
Catherine, we're
right?
trying to think about how we can get you some visual access here. So one moment. And we'll get there. What are some things that are standing out to you as what you're seeing out there?
Communication.
Communication.
Communication?
Yeah.
Definitely agree. Yeah.
In studio space.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Everything's important. I feel like that's clear message with like everything. Important. Which is really nice to see that reflected, like if we had something up here that only had a single dot,
Oh, yeah.
that would have, been like, okay, we're not quite driving up with the plan, but it is interesting. All of them have dots.
But the timeline, it's cool how the timeline sorts itself out.
Yeah.
So who would wanna? Progress. Oh, yep. Oh, right, do a second. I was gonna say, so could anyone take a stab at summarizing what you see as the timeline? Like if we were going to be breaking into 3 or 4 working groups based on what you're seeing here.
Certain resources, I mean, places to
Yeah.
create, art. We know that obviously real estate is one of the biggest challenges we all face in this area, both residential and from a work standpoint. Creating those button factory like, spaces that people can get together and have a free flowing of creative ideas and that collaboration that drives the arts.
Right.
I think, that's a tremendous challenge we all know for this city.
That one also says, identify opportunities for art spaces, partnership and collaboration. So I
Yeah.
think partnership and collaboration is a big part of that as well.
Right.
Which I think started during COVID. There was just so much more
Sharing.
collaboration.
Sharing spaces.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just all sorts of collaboration.
Yeah.
Well, the collaborations connect to all these building projects and the proposals for new housing or, the new development. If you can collaborate with the developer to include this kind of stuff in their project,
Mhm.
At least that's the way I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, and I think when we were getting feedback from the community, kind of a glaring miss that we have in Portsmouth is we don't have like a community center where everybody can come together for kind of scheduled art lessons. And certainly within here, if you look at the language under it, based on what's in this plan and the previous plan is definitely just more work living spaces. Teach classes out of home studios, so that's definitely under that bullet as well, yeah. Yeah.
That's also related to this concept of collaboration, it's related to this community engagement piece around coordination, including right before. Yeah, because we end up with some and resources here are connecting to use existing resources here.
Yep.
So I see that resources probably like as well, and it would be like network communications, right?
Yeah. And I think the feeling that we have a lot of different communication channels that go out and announce events and all that, but they're in all different places. So at least some of the feedback that we heard was, you know, could that somehow be streamlined or centralized in some manner that you kind of have a one-stop shopping, like one place you could go to learn about all the art events going on across the city.
Quick question around that, and I don't know if there's an answer in this room, but you know, that puts the commission in somewhat of a position to play kingmaker. If we make a recommendation to like, hey, here's the resource that we advocate for, you know, because I think there were some, I don't know if there's some for-profit, you know, sites that are like, hey, here's things to do in the city this week. So whatever we throw our weight behind has the potential to really, like, I mean, that's obviously very advantageous for wherever we direct it to say, hey, here is a resource. So just something to consider. Because I don't know what those options would be, but it seems like, you know, us trying to direct is beneficial to the community because we know there's a lot of different places, and so people go here, some go here. But if there is that place where, you know, 8 out of 10 people on the street can say, oh, here's where you go to find out what's happening in Portsmouth this week. That's a win. That's a win for the organizations, artists, and for the community.
Well,
But how do we choose that one?
I'm not seeing that as a kingmaker because I remember the time Robin was talking about how she, working for Jay, goes to all the different resources and makes one central, collects all the information for his patrons. And that's really what we're looking for here. Instead of having somebody do it for their own patron, somebody to do something like that for the citizens, you know, as a publication or a resource or somewhere like that. Some sort of a system or organization or somebody who did that job of looking at all the different sites and consolidating.
I think my concern about that is you're creating something that already exists. There's already, so we're not going to have the resources or funding or staffing to build something and maintain it. It's going to be probably leveraging something that already exists. That's my thought. Is
Yeah, but right now it's dispersed. And so maybe if there was some sort of, if we can encourage somebody to take it on as a private enterprise to publish, like the same way, like analogous to what's his name did at the Penhallow Fabrics there with his art resource guide. Something, and like he was doing it for profit by selling ads in his book, right? But if somebody could sell ads in their book and their book was a collection of all the different things, then it could be a business model for somebody and we could encourage somebody to take that on.
But that you just came right back to my point. If
Yeah.
somebody monetize that and we throw weight behind it, that's exactly what I was saying. We set up somebody in a very advantageous position to then monetize it through advertising sales or whatever. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I just want to be aware as a group.
So I'm gonna say.
So there was when I was in Omaha, there was an artist who took it on himself to have a Facebook page of what's happening in Omaha this week in the arts. And if you had something going on, you just sent him a message, and then he just had this Facebook page that all the art openings every week, you know, first Friday was, who's doing what, and you just, if you were the artist, you just sent him the Facebook message, and he just gave a listing of ever, and he didn't take money from it, but it was just a way that if you wanted to know what to happen, you just go look at Bart's page.
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but there's already two things that exist that we, know, portsmouthandh.com and Go Portsmouth, the chamber site. And, and then there's state sites and stuff. And when I was at Portsmouth Historical, it was my job to post to those sites. So, portsmouthandh.com exists, Go Portsmouth exists, but my time would be spent posting at both places. And I totally understand what you say. And, Ben is here, but we have the portsmouthandh.com is there. And each organization has to go in and post their stuff there. So we have to look at what's already there too. What you're right. If we say that's it, then.
So I think this goes straight to like, this is a top level concern, and probably also one that we can find some solutions to relatively quickly within this first year, right? So that communication feels like a key one, and I could see that already as potentially a working group, because I should say, after we do this process today, the idea is to split into four working groups. Is that, wait, am I using the right language? Yes. Okay. Stay away from the C word, right? Yeah. Okay. 4 working groups, and they don't necessarily have to be a pillar like resources, but we are thinking more of one of the sub-points. So, the communication as one of those working groups seems like it will probably rise to the top, and I love the ideas that are already coming up. So we see communication, we talk about resources. Do you think, is that too broad to say resources as one? There was a little bit of conversation about resources versus collaboration. Is that too separate?
I feel like that second bullet under resources has more weight than the first, and actually that first one almost seems like we're building a catalog that will be built if communication's better. If we focus on that first one, it's going to build itself practically, and we just need to actually then maintain it or develop some system. So if there were more weight put behind that second bullet, resources as a leading priority, as is indicated by the dots anyway, but.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who consumes the arts a lot, I find it always very frustrating because there seems to be not a lot of communication amongst the various groups, and everything I want to do is always on the same night. That happens a lot, and I think a lot of times a lot of people have no idea what other people are doing, and if there was some way to communicate ahead of time so that the Historical Society and Strawberry Bank won't both have some big something the same night. That would be really good. And I mean, that's the type of thing I think that would really, if we could figure that out somehow, and I don't know how, I think that's something that would really help the people in the city.
Sounds like a community calendar.
Yeah.
One-stop shop. Here's the month and here's what's happening.
Well, and I mean, that's an interesting point, because that goes to like 12 to 18 months ahead of time. Yes, I really, there's sometimes internal things where you're like, wow, I wish I could plan out, 2 years from now. Sometimes things pop up, but it's a really interesting question, because I think I have a feeling the organizations all plan at different rates and times, but if we could do something.
Well, but part of it is, you get ready to plan something and you can look at the calendar and say, oh, okay, well, that's not a good night to do it, or a good day. Or
I was gonna say, it would be nice if the organizations we had an internal calendar, not a public facing calendar for organizations. In the same way that we have a city calendar. So we have a city calendar of all the events that with organizations ask the city to close a street or to do, whatever and the city manager manages that calendar with the staff. But it'd be nice if we had an internal calendar too, for all the entities, the leadership and the entities to look at it and say, oh, it looks like this is the night for Vintage and Vine. So we're not going to hold our major fundraiser that night as well. And then everybody just populates that with their major events.
Okay, has the city of Portsmouth ever had an arts bulletin or anything like that?
I don't know.
They
People
tried
tried
with
for
Art Speak,
I think.
but
Art Speak, yeah.
they tried, but the problem is it's getting everybody to put their stuff in all the time and everybody changes and it's just,
Yeah.
it's difficult.
I mean, so what I like about something like that is it serves the purpose of avoiding conflicts that you were mentioning, like knowing that, okay, I'm not putting my thing on the same night as all these other things. And what I also like about that is it doesn't take away from something like Go Portsmouth or any of those other sites or somewhere that could monetize it and they're paying their employees to manage that site. So the pitch and the selling of tickets and everything can still happen on other sites, but just the listing of the event, it's one central place that the city could, that would be under our purview to keep up. And it could be wrong and we'd have to update it and there would be conflicts and whatever, but it's still,
But you would think if we were talking about major events, the annual fundraiser, an organization has probably, it's 8 to 12 months, I
Yeah,
know when it's
yeah,
gonna
yeah, yeah.
happen. So maybe it's just this commission taking responsibility for, okay, so we've got our list of arts organizations in town and maybe it's a biannual check-in, kind of like 6 months. So beginning of the year and a halfway point, like, hey, what do you have planned for the next 6 months?
one more place to list it.
Yeah, and not do like, what's the monthly, but like 6 months. Okay, next half a year, do you have your major thing coming up? Let's get it there. And people, other organizations can be aware of and build around it.
I was just thinking, coming back to like resources and rather than having to make a decision between the first bullet there and the second bullet, I think that the way we were thinking in terms of process with the cultural plan, certainly open for discussion, but we do have it built into the cultural plan, is that every one of these pillars would have some sort of assessment. Like that would be a given. We always, that's step one. And I look at bullet one up there as part of the assessment. So rather than having it be a standalone, maybe it's just always, we just assume it's incorporated, like assessment is always going to be the first step for any of these that we've
Kind of
done.
like a baseline, so
Exactly.
that we can measure. That was one, as I was
Yeah.
going through it, one of the things I wrote in my margins is like, how do you tell if we've been successful?
Right, yeah.
Sure. Could I just share a little experience I had with the Economic Development Commission, which is similarly established like this? So they broke into 2 working groups and the working groups went away and came back to the full commission with their 2 priorities. And a lot of it, the first ideas were just kind of what they were hearing out on the street, what they were experiencing. And fortunately, rather than assuming there was a problem, there was the assessment phase. And so in my language, in my world, it's like, what is the current state? What is the future state? What is the gap and how do we address the gap? So it starts with the current state and everyone has this experience with communication and what's available. And I have to put this on the table, Ken, because this is our issue here in Portsmouth. We have an abundance of riches in arts and culture, right? So there's going to be competing events on the same night. That's a tough problem to have, but we have to fight through it. I'm trying to be funny. It's not working.
I was laughing.
But so all that to say, the Economic Development Committee, they came back and they had 4 issues. And when they got right down to it, there really weren't 4 issues. They just had to understand the current state of a couple of their issues that they thought was getting in the way of development. And so the good news is it allowed them to say, that's being covered by the city or by developers or by others. We can move on to another topic because it's being handled and it's something they can certainly come back to check in. So just, I was hearing some parallel conversation. I want to share that. Thanks.
Well, the discussion we just had about the communications really is about what's the baseline in
Yeah,
it
exactly.
as well.
Mhm.
So the same model follow. So
So here's
Lene,
a question. We have the Portsmouth NH and we also have the Go. So because we have both of those, but here we're still having concerns about having a location to go to. So obviously those 2 are not serving what we think we want, right? It's like there's 2 options currently in the mix, but they don't seem to necessarily be the successful focus of what we're looking for that kind of communication piece? Yes or no?
I think that there's another element to this too. It's not that the resources aren't adequate resources, it's that some organizations and institutions don't have the staffing to make sure
Right.
that their information is shared and therefore
Yes.
populated on these sites. So, especially a small organization that doesn't have the staff is really going to struggle with advertising.
So that could be a great part for this working group to dig into, like if people aren't putting something up on the sites, why not? And it's that, again, is that the gap that we can close in helping get everyone to a single.
So Linnea, when you're talking about 4 task groups, I mean, it sounds like right away there's 2 task groups on these 2 items, but we can talk about the middle and long-term things because those can be task groups too, especially like if you have a long-term goal. Then in order to achieve a long-term goal, you have to establish that task group now also.
Yeah. What do you see one that's kind of standing out that should get established early? And that can be a question for everybody.
Well, for me personally, I put my long-term goal, all 3 of them on the education one for adults. Because I've been talking to the makerspace, we're looking for a new site. And floating the idea of them really becoming a school. Because one of our focus groups in the earlier process, the idea of having an art school here in Portsmouth as a destination, like a Haystack, Aramont kind of a thing, would be really cool, but that's clearly a long-term goal. But if you don't start working towards it now, then it's always going to be a long-term goal. It's never going to happen.
Right.
I think the preservation efforts too, need longer term planning because it involves probably grant writing, right? Getting resources.
So green, yellow, blue, I just did a simple exercise of green count for 3 points. Yellow for 2 and blue for 1. Highest scoring was the communication, the first one, 34. Second was actually the first bullet on resources because the amount of yellows in there, that's 30. Third is 29 right under it. The next in line is 21 under education, the first bullet. So if we were just looking at top 4 priorities, it wouldn't include preservation and historical at the moment. But this is just an exercise. I mean, this is like
Were you gonna say something, Teresa?
I was gonna say, I was actually gonna say similar to what Kate said, preservation to me seems like we do the work ahead of time, and part of preservation is also preserving the work we just did and the planning we just did beyond the culture, like what we did and how do we make that work for all the years to come before the next cultural plan as well.
I think it speaks to what Sean was saying too about the history and the culture that we already have existing here. Part of building the catalog and getting the communication out and hitting multiple of these bullets all at once would probably be, I don't know, leaning into that first preservation effort to better understand and communicate our current preservation efforts with the community at large. That might help with understanding the current art and culture that's out there and available just in the process of I don't know, preserving it. So do we weigh it differently? Do we,
There's some here that are clearly combined, and I think 2 of the 2 top ones that by points, that Eli just pointed out, are very, very similar about, it's about community resources.
Yeah.
And providing community resources, doing assessment of communities, what are they? Providing the information about them. Those are easily, I think, put together in one group.
Yeah, I think that's some of what Linnea was referencing earlier too, is looking at just the way the pillars were written out in the cultural plan. Once we see where things are rising, there's probably an opportunity to combine across broader themes so that, like what I'm hearing, there's the communication, there's resources, there's collaboration, longer term education and preservation. How can we kind of funnel a few things into those work groups to be tackled so that also, as we know from having gone through the cultural plan, if we have just something short term that can be achieved in a few months, then what's that work group working on? So making sure that we have things that are of all terms. And we've also talked internally in our leadership meeting about making sure we also have some short-term things that we can achieve this year. So the Arts and Cultural Commission can show to the community, hey, we're able to actually achieve some things, that this group is able to make some difference in the community. So there's more kind of public support and buy-in for what this commission can do, and bring some visibility to our work as well. So we also want to be mindful of being able to have some kind of low-hanging fruit that we can really show as an accomplishment for the first year as this commission, especially since we're a brand new commission, to show that we can make a difference. So we'll be looking at how to balance all of those things, the very, very immediate, short-term, medium, and long-term. Jen, yeah.
Well, I think that what Karen was saying about assessment is in a way what the immediate goal is.
Hmm.
And I was thinking back with the whole communication thing is that part of the problem isn't that we don't have communication. It's that people don't know to go there. Everybody has
Right.
their own, I only go to here, I go to this place, or I get my information from here. So it's getting out the information about where the information, you know, and that's sort of an assessment of all the other things that we already have. And the same is true with planning. You know, we know there's a lack of space for artists of all kinds. I mean, we may be losing our space. And but taking an assessment of what is out there, what's possible, that is like a short-term goal to me that then sets us up for everything else.
Right.
So when we did the Americans for the Arts Economic Impact Study, we created a spreadsheet of all of the arts and culture nonprofits in Portsmouth, Cary, and Rye. And it changes, you know, because somebody leaves and instead of executive at something.org, it says Robin at, you know, and then the person leaves. And so it's hard to maintain, but we have it. What I don't think we have is all of the for-profit venues. Where is music? You know, so that's just something that I think is lacking, which is a list of all the places that in the city we have nonprofit, but where is a list that has the press room and the goat and the Gaslight and Jimmy's and every other, you know, for-profit? So, you know, I'm not sure where that fits,
Well,
but it seems like it's a need, that's a list.
I loved,
That
so I
says to
love
Jim.
that discussion
Mm.
about like, we gotta be worried about somebody monetizing it. Because actually that is somebody's job to monetize things like this. And to work on it and do the work, and like, it is a job to do the upkeep on these things. But maybe we create something new that's the city or the Arts and Cultural Commission bulletin board, where we post all, like, just like, here, this organization's doing something that night. Click on their hyperlink to their website, find out more about what that thing is. But we aren't actually broadcasting, we're not selling anything, we're just listing something so that it's all in one place.
It's hard to attach events to those, but because there's so many, but even just that this space exists and art is happening here.
I think that there's great value in also having a list of visual artists.
Yeah.
We just don't have lists of visual artists, and you know, you have a tour once a year that you get to go see some of their studios. And so, but it's, you know, if you're not going to the Button Factory, then where are all the other visual artists? And a
Yeah.
lot of them are in home studios.
Yeah,
In the galleries.
yeah. And I was gonna throw one quick idea from Ellen Feinberg, is she identified an app that you can kind of have an e-map, and you can have your visual artists on that e-map across the city, or add nonprofits or for-profit organizations, but there could be something that people can just tap into an app and find everybody.
Last comment, and then because we have 5 minutes to wrap up.
I didn't want this thought to escape me. So obviously we know there's more development happening these days, and there are a handful of developers. I can rattle off 5 of them. Does it make sense moving forward for this commission to have a liaison to start actually having conversations with those developers for future projects? Anything that's under construction now, the ship has kind of already sailed on it, but McIntyre being done by Anthony Di Lorenzo. We know Chinberg, McNabb, Steve Kelm, Tom Balon, there's a handful of guys who are going to shape the future of the buildings in this town and what we need to be talking to them.
That sounds like such a great.
Very good point.
Especially with the resources.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I'm going to turn for help on next steps. I know the leadership group will get back together.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, we will have another meeting between our next or commission meetings. So we will meet and likely start to build out what we think based on all of our conversations today, what those work groups might look like. And then come back to you all at the next meeting to present those and have folks sign up for those various work groups. And again, not necessarily pulling just the bullet points, but trying to come up with kind of broader themes that we're as rising up as priorities to build those into the work group and then go from there. And then the goal moving forward would be much like we did for the cultural plan for work groups to meet outside of commission meetings to do more of the work to continue this report commission on what we're doing, how the commission can best support, what your efforts are, what there are things we can do as a whole, but that most of that work is going to happen in the work group. And so we're aiming based on the size of our commission, 3 to 4 work groups. So 3 to 4 people per work group is what we'd be looking at. So, yeah, and then we'll keep moving from there. That's kind of next steps would be to present the work groups and to sign up.
And I think you mentioned this last time, but just something I just again thought worked really well is people self-assigned.
Yeah,
Just based on their experiences, their
Yep.
passion, their interests and all that. And it seemed like it did work well. So here's an
Yeah,
idea.
our goal
Yeah.
would be much like this time when we send out the agenda for the next meeting, to have those work groups in there
Mhm.
so that you all can see before the meeting what they're going to be and be thinking about what you
About
might
it.
like to sign up
Yeah,
for.
yeah.
Right. So we would just kind of describe. Feeling.
Yeah.
And we so appreciate
Hmm.
you for doing that
Mhm.
because it's just gonna move. It's hard to,
Mhm.
and that is a great start. So we appreciate
Mhm.
that.
2 really quick questions on process, just because this new commission and do we need to like gavel in, gavel out, vote in, vote second, like all those things to start a meeting, to close a meeting? We haven't voted on anything yet, so we're good, but is that up to us to decide?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
But, you do need to have formal on things. You
Right.
do need a quorum to have a formal vote. Every committee has a different culture and operates a little bit differently. We suggest Robert's rules because it's easy to manage. But everybody uses it. Not everybody even has the same, I won't say care, but leadership for each. So, yeah.
And I'll just, I mean, Jeffrey knows, you have to have your attendance and you have to document your votes. Those are the 2. After that, you can decide how you want to operate.
So up to leadership then, I guess. Second quick question, because we have people from the public attending, do we have public session as incorporated, or should we just say hi?
Most groups have at the bottom of their agenda, public
comment.
comment, and then the chair will call anybody who like.
So in our last couple minutes, Ben, and I didn't get your name, is there anything you'd like to add or just say hi or thank you for being here?
I'm actually here. I studied political science and looking to get a master's in public policy, so I am just gonna put up some of these meetings, so I can write some stuff, so thanks for having me.
Ben Van Camp, I know most of you all with the Chamber Collaborative. We are a big fan of the arts and we're pretty hard behind the scenes to help in any way we can. So we are here as a resource. Oftentimes the Chamber of Commerce can do things that the city cannot do. And that's where we come in with things like that. And we recently have been partnering with Art Around Town to bring some new life to that effort. And so we have 12, 13 galleries signed up to participate in that. And it happens to be this Friday. So,
Nice.
Thank you for
So
taking.
Friday and then baby animals.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you for taking that on, Ben, too, the art around town that needed some leadership.
It's a city park.
Anything else anyone wants to bring to the group before we Adjourn.
So we have our next meeting scheduled. Do we want to get June on the books or is that's in the works or?
Next meeting's May 20th.
May 20th?
I would prefer we get the whole year, like it's more, as much as we could pick out, but.
I agree.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll work on a like
We can do a
suggested dates just based
calendar.
on the pattern.
Sure.
So everyone.
Yeah,
can-
it's looking like third Mondays at 1 o'clock. But we will put together a calendar for the next meeting, just to make sure it doesn't overlap with any holidays or breaks, but. Yep, so our next meeting is Monday, May 20th, 1 o'clock here. And I think we could look ahead to
17.
the 17th, June 17th at 1 o'clock here. And again, before the next meeting, we'll drop a more complete calendar to share with them.
Adjourn?
Good meeting.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Vote to adjourn?
I don't think.
I don't think
We
so.
didn't, we didn't have to
start.
start.
Just
We didn't vote to start.
I would feel.
Here we go.
There it is.
Hit the dance. That's it.
Unofficial lot rule.
Well done.
Thank you, everyone.